They're everywhere among us, in every walk of life. Good people who step up and do what their heart tells them is right. And if by chance you're standing by one these deeds confront, be glad tonight and take the time to celebrate the unsung.
That day, I worked all day like a normal day. Had a meeting after work, was feeling fine, and I had to go get some rewards for some of the teachers, so get some donations, and so I was out in the community up in Litchfield, and I was out there, and I got hungry, and my husband was out of town, so I went to Taco Bell to get me something to eat, and I had to use the restroom, went into the restroom, and that's when it all started. My water started leaking that day, and right then and there I knew something was wrong. So I called my mom first and told her what was going on, and she was just going to meet me at the hospital. And so I, went out the car and just started driving pretty fast, and my water would start leaking, then it would stop, and leak and stop, and so I called my friend Julie, who's a labor and delivery nurse, and I had just seen her Saturday night out, and she said, okay, I'll come on and I'll meet you at labor and delivery. So about 2 minutes later, she calls me back and says, to get somewhere where I can pull over, get my feet up in the air, and she's going to come pick me up. So she did. Her and her dad came and got me.
My phone rang that day, and it was her, and I was like, wonder what she wants. And so I answer it, and she's kind of upset, and she says, I think my water broke. And of course I was asking her, well, what happened? I said, tell me what you did. And she told me that, she went to the bathroom, and all of a sudden she just felt a lot of fluid come out. And of course I said, well, is it still, coming out? And she said, yeah. So I said, well, you probably need to get to the hospital. I said, you just make your way there, and I'll meet you down there. Well, I got to thinking, because I wasn't really thinking at that time, I was just thinking of what she was saying. I was like, if our water is broke, you don't need to be sitting, because you have pressure down more and the water would run out more because of gravity. So I called her back. I said, pull over wherever you can, and I said, we'll come get you. So my dad happened to be home too, so we take off to go and get her, which of course he went with me, because if something was to happen or whatever, I couldn't really do anything if I was driving. So we took off and went and got her, and whenever we pulled up to her car and she got out, she had a towel between her legs, and wasn't a very good sight for me to see that, because it was like, yeah, her water's broke.
Julie and her dad pull up, and I see them and I get out, and of course her dad was driving, and they had blankets and pillows and stuff, because she wanted me up as high as I could get, and so I remember getting out, and it seemed like every time, if I bent over, I was okay, but as soon as I would raise up, then I felt just more of the fluid coming out. So I just kind of wanted to stay bent over, and I think Julie was kind of feeling for contractions or whatever, and anyway, they got me in the back of her dad's I don't know what he was driving, SUV. And once again, I remember hanging on to that handle in the back, and I just had my feet up as far as I could, my legs up, my bottom up, and I remember Julie's dad saying, do I need to put on can we just drive regular, or do we need to put on the caution lights and go? And she said, turn the caution lights on, let's go. And then, then I kind of had a fear of maybe I will have her. Or, this is worse than I thought.
And I did tell her, I said, I'm just going to tell you what you're probably looking at. I said, obviously your water's broke. And I said, just depends on if you're dilated or not, when we get to the hospital. And I said, we don't have the facility to take care of such a premature baby, so you will probably get, transferred to another facility, probably Evansville.
I just remember pulling up. Julie was calling, the hospital, telling them to, have a wheelchair and get my doctor there and have everybody ready, because I think she knew something was going on. And down deep, I kind of thought, I told Mom, get me some clothes. They're going to check me, stop this, and I'm going to go back home, and everything's going to be fine. And so we got to the hospital, and all the nurses and Mom were out there and waiting for me. Then that's when I kind of knew that, she was probably coming. And
once we got there, of course, in the car, I called labor and delivery and told them what was going on, and they called the doctor, and she was already there, and everybody was pretty much ready for her. They were all standing outside the door whenever we pulled up with a wheelchair, and everything was going on. And of course, the main thing that we were wondering is, how was the baby? So of course we hook her up to the monitor, and of course we have a fetal heart rate, which is great. I mean, we're pretty much all bombarding her. We're getting an IV in her. We had to start a medication to stop any kind of contraction she was having, so that we wouldn't put any more added pressure on anything. And of course her doctor was there, so she checked her, and she was dilated. And we don't like to see anybody who's like 25 weeks dilated. So she wanted to stabilize her as much as we could there, and then transfer her to St. Mary's.
probably about 5-10 minutes out, I just felt so much pressure, and I just remember feeling that pressure and telling Julie I couldn't make it that far. And so, anyway, I felt all that pressure, then all of a sudden, I just kind of felt this gush, and my water just broke all the way, and I still didn't really know what was happening, and I just remember telling Julie, okay, well, that was such a relief, I can make it now. And I thought, okay, no problem. But at that time, I didn't know that I had Corbyn. And there was another lady another paramedic in there with Julie, and I just heard her say, come on. And then I was like, what? I had my baby? And she was like, yeah, you did. And I was like, well, what did I have? And she's like, you had a baby girl.
And about that time, I hear her beat on the side of the ambulance that she has a lot of pressure and she can't hold it. And of course, at that time, I was kind of turned this way, and all of a sudden I hear this water come out. And I look around, and there was Corbyn. She basically, I joke about it now, but rode the wave. It was, even though it's really not good in pregnancy, the fluid at this time was good for Corbyn, because she didn't have to fight anything to come out. She just came on out. And it was amazing. I grabbed her up, and of course, at that time I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I've never done this before, especially in an ambulance, a baby this small. And so of course, even though she wasn't crying, she was moving, and that's a good sign. And her color was, good enough as far as what her gestation was at.
So I remember them saying, well, what do we need to do? And asking Julie. Julie really never, I know she was working on Corbyn, but I never heard her cry. I never heard, that's why I didn't know if I had her. And I just remember, Julie saying, let's turn around. They had to get Corbyn back to, the emergency room. So we turned around, went back to Owensboro, the hospital there, and so then I had another friend that had to call everybody and tell them all to come back to Owensboro because they were all on their way to Evansville and to St. Mary's. And I remember when we got there, I guess Julie just took Corbyn and ran her to the ER, and they already knew that we were coming back. So, and another lady took me in, and it just from there it was kind of a blur.
When was the first? Her heart rate always stayed good. She was always good color. She never did turn blue. She was always pink. She was still moving every once in a while. Never did cry. That's why Charlotte really didn't know she had her. And it seemed like forever to get back to the hospital because, of course, they asked me, what do you want to do? And I just had to, I was thinking, why are they asking me? And then I was thinking, yeah, we can't go to Evansville like this. There's nothing in the ambulance that could help us and do the things that she needed done. So, of course, we turned back around, and we had just got on the Audubon to head over, and it seemed like it took us to eternity to get back to the Owensboro Hospital. But once we got there, I don't think I said 2 words to Charla whenever I had her, taking care of Corbyn. I was just doing what I had to do, and once we got there, I took her inside, and of course I had already asked the ambulance people to, tell them that we have the baby and that, the pediatrician needs to be there. We need nursery down in the ER. We need, everybody. And it was amazing. I walked right in, and there everybody was. And of course, I let them take her. I was like, yeah, here,
I got to see Corbyn, so I had her that night, of course, in the ambulance about 8:20 or so, but I didn't get to see her until the next day. They released me probably about around lunchtime, and then Jamie and his mom got to go on over that night and to Evansville and stay, and then my mom and me, we got to go over to the next day. So I guess I got to see her, had her on a Monday night, and I got to see her probably Tuesday afternoon about 4.
And you'd never seen it.
Oh, it was overwhelming. I've been to hospital bunches of times, and I've always seen babies, but of course I didn't know what to expect. I knew it was early, and I didn't know if she was going to survive. But she's a miracle. It's unreal sometimes.
Yeah.
Just to think of everything she went through. But yeah, she's doing wonderful. Well, she, if it wasn't for her, I wouldn't have a daughter. Because she saved her. You know, over at Evansville, then the doctors and nurses were, you know, when she came over to see Corbyn, and, you know, a couple days later, and I told them, I was like, this is Julie, this is the girl that delivered her. And, you know, they just, I remember they were like, oh, you did a wonderful job. And, you know, they even said if it wasn't for her that, you know, because she was so little, and the rib cage, and, you know, getting her to, you know, to try to breathe and stuff, I mean, Julie knew what she was doing. If not, you know, they said, you know, it could have been bad. You know, they were just like, Julie, you did a wonderful job. And, you know, they pretty much told me that she saved her life. But she's just our angel. Saved her.
Well, I mean, lots of times a lot of people did approach me and tell me, you know, good job, glad you were there, or whatever. And I mean, I was just doing what I normally do. I mean, that's what I felt like. Sorry. I guess it was kind of different because it was Charlotte, was my friend. I mean, not that I wouldn't think about it with any other person, but it was just, you know, thinking, you know, what's going to happen? You know, is she going to make it or not make it? But I was just doing what I do. And I had an angel sitting on my shoulder while I was doing it. That's the way that I look at it.
The mission of the March of Dimes is to improve the health of babies by preventing birth defects, premature birth, and infant mortality. We raise $85,000. This consists of local businesses, local people, family teams who would like to come out and show their support. We had over 500 walkers this year for the March for Babies walk.
Help get us to the place where we are. My youngest child, Josie, was born extremely early. We had a lot of problems with her, but she is a success story. She's healthy today, and it's due in part to the research and the funding and the things that organizations like this.
And she was 1 pound, 11 ounces, and 13 inches long, and she's doing wonderful today. And when we got over to St. Mary's, all the doctors and nurses there, you know, just told me that, you know, that, and as I look back now, I realize, you know, if it wasn't for Julie, that Corbyn probably wouldn't be here. Well, she saved her life that day. And that is my story, and she's 13 pounds, 3 ounces today. Thanks.
So today, we have an angel among us, and there are many. But Julie, you didn't know that this was going to happen today. And we would like for you at this time to come on up with us, because we have some things we would like to give back to you. Julie took an ordinary day, probably felt like an ordinary day to you, and did an extraordinary thing. And we can look at Corbyn now and see that Corbyn is alive and well and doing wonderfully. And if it was not for you, Julie, and you taking time and going above and beyond, we probably wouldn't have Corbyn. And we want to thank you for that. We would like to present to you the very first Unsung Award that we're going to be having with our show. This is actually a mold of Corbyn's hand, and we got that plastic for you. And so we would like to allow you to have that And also, go ahead.
And Julie, I just want to tell you that you gave me the opportunity to become a mom and to have a daughter, and I thank you for that. And so does Corbyn and Jamie. Thank you. We love you.
Well, we would like to thank you all for being a part of this moment with us, with Unsung. And I know there's many, many others that have done wonderful, extraordinary things, and this is one that we were able to experience today. So I thank you for that opportunity. And Julie, we thank you for what you've done.
Yeah, there we go. It's bright over this way, isn't it?
Bright.